Welcome on back, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules Footy Podcast. We're up to episode 27. This is a round 11 review for this 2024 AFL season. As always, thanks for tuning in. Welcome back. If you've been here before, if you're new, welcome on in. Hope you enjoy the time, get something out of this. We're going to be reviewing round 11 today. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. Check me out on all my socials. We've got Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of the above. As always, this episode is going to basically be, we'll have a look at the tips, how my tips went on the weekend, and then we'll review each game, have a look at where the games were won, lost, how your team went on the weekend. Also, coming up this week and for the next few weeks, we're going to have a few big weeks coming up over on the YouTube. So this week we'll do our regular review episode in this one, which will be coming out Monday night, and the preview episode this week will be coming out Thursday morning for round 12. So that will be on YouTube and Spotify as per usual. As a bonus, this week and each week for the next few, we're going to be doing bonus mid-season review videos over on the YouTube for each team as they have the bye. So this week, there's 4 teams having the bye. So Tuesday, lunchtime, we'll be releasing the Brisbane mid-season review. Wednesday lunchtime, we'll be releasing the North Melbourne mid-season review. Then Friday morning, we'll do the Sydney one, and then Friday afternoon, we will have the GWS mid-season review. Then next week, the 2 teams having the bye, which off the top of my head, I can't think of them right now, but I think it might be Port Adelaide, Fremantle possibly. We'll do them, and as each team has the bye, we'll just have a look at how their season's going at roughly the midway point of the season. Obviously, the teams having the bye this week have played 11, still have 12 to go. And I think we've got about 4 weeks of byes coming up. So, yeah, each week we'll just be running through each team on the YouTube. Only will be released on the YouTube channel. So, don't forget to check them out, especially your team. Just my thoughts on each team, how they're going, where they can improve, how each player's going. Not every single player, but that'll be about a 10-minute video, I would imagine. Anyway, that's the plan for this week. It's going to be a big couple weeks for me on the channel. Plenty of content coming out. First up, today's episode, though, we're going to have a look over at my tips from the weekend. How did they go? Oh, also, repping the Tassie Devils today. Just arrived, nice and fresh. Got to support the local team. Not coming up. How did we go? Western Bulldogs, Sydney. I got this one wrong. I took a gamble. I mean, Sydney were favourites. I kind of thought Sydney were going to win, but I thought it was worth a risk to go with the Doggies. And look, I wasn't that far off. Sydney won it by like 12 or 14 points or something, so it wasn't a terrible tip, but it is the way it is. Fremantle drew with Collingwood, so we technically get that one right. But so does everybody. Port Adelaide, that was a bit of a gimme against North Melbourne. Carlton, they got the points against Gold Coast. Geelong went down to GWS. Margin was close, but I got that one wrong. Essendon beat Richmond, nowhere near by 75 points, but we get the tick anyway. Brisbane went down to Hawthorn, surprising for me, not surprising for everyone. I didn't think they'd win by much, but Hawthorn got the points there. Melbourne smoked St Kilda, only by 38 points, but it certainly felt like it should have been more than that. And Adelaide absolutely demolished West Coast. So we got 6 out of 9. We moved to 65 out of 99 for the season, which isn't terrible, but it's certainly not anything to write home about. Hopefully we can have a good few weeks coming up and improve that a little bit. So we'll jump straight into the reviews. And obviously, first game of the weekend was Thursday night footy, Western Bulldogs, Sydney. As always, these are the stats from before the game that you see on the screen if you're watching the screen. It's just so you can see basically what game we're talking about. I don't do the graphics anymore post-game. It just was taking too much time. I still get them prepared for the pre-games, obviously, but I have a lot that I do each game, so I don't have time to put together the graphics for post-game. This game, where was it won? Where was it lost? Look, the final margin was only 14 points. Bulldogs kicked 12 goals, 16-88. They lost to Sydney 16-6, 102. So poor kicking is probably the biggest factor in this game. The Bulldogs having 12 goals, 16 is not ideal. You will win some games kicking that poorly, but it certainly makes it very difficult to beat a quality team like Sydney. If you look at quarters by quarter, Bulldogs actually won enough of them as well. They won the first quarter by 2 points, they won the second quarter by 2 points, and they won the fourth quarter by 5 points. The only issue is in the third quarter they only kicked 1 goal 3, while Sydney kicked 5 goals 2. So at the end of the day, the two major things, Sydney kicked straighter, and that third quarter just was a domination by Sydney really, and that's probably where the game was won and lost. If we look at the stats, Bulldogs had a lot more of the ball, plus 40 odd disposals. That was both contested and uncontested. They kind of dominated this game, but I mean, possession doesn't always mean all that much. Bulldogs, obviously, as per their usual game style, and has been their game style for many years, were a lot more handball-y than the Swans, but that's neither here nor there. Turnover game was surprisingly won quite easily by the Bulldogs. Only had 56 turnovers for the game, which is really, really good return in that regard, whereas Sydney had 67, so positives there for the Bulldogs. Just their inability to score goals was their main issue. It'll just harp back to that time and time again. If you kick 12 goals, 16, it's going to be an issue. Contested marks, Bulldogs were good at that. The pressure game was pretty even across both teams. Sydney, obviously, their pressure rating was slightly higher, but when the opposition has more of the ball, you tend to see that sort of thing. Centre clearances dominated by the Bulldogs. Stoppage clearances were pretty even, but centre clearances 16-8 in the favour of the Bulldogs, which is quite a massive margin. Tackle game was in Sydney's favour, but as I said, the other team had the ball more, so you should tackle more. Inside 50s was the probably biggest stat differential to the result, which was Bulldogs plus 14. You'd expect, looking at a plus 14 inside 50, plus 11 on turnover game, plus 40 disposals, and what was it, plus 8 shots or whatever it was. You find it hard to believe that the Bulldogs didn't win this, but in the end, Sydney's class was just too good. A lot of positives for the Bulldogs out of the game. It's not the end of the world for them. They lost to a very good team, and they played some very good football throughout, but Sydney just were the more efficient team, and probably the difference. They have plenty of experience winning games this year, and they showed that again this one. If we look down at players for each team, top players, Bontempelli was a star. He stood out. He was the highest rated player using my player rating system on the ground with a 196. I haven't done adjustments for positions yet, but I can't see him being beat from that. Who else was good? Riley West ranked a 120. Liam Jones was a 119. Bailey Dale was a 120. 120 for Caleb Daniel was a good return, and Tim English was a 152 in the ruck. Treloar had 30 touches. Wasn't his most efficient game in terms of scoring. He had 22 effective disposals, which is quite high from 30 possessions. So, look, his game was good. I'm not exactly sure where he lost his points, but yeah, he was solid as well. So he rated a 107. Probably unlucky not to be slightly higher, but that's what the numbers say. For the Swans, their best player, I think, is pretty obvious, was Chad Warner. He was a standout performer again. He's had a couple massive weeks. He had 25 touches, 4 goals, 3 goal assists, 10 score involvements, 4 clearances. He was just really, really good all-round game. He ranked a 171, which is lower than Bont's score, but Chad Warner's the best player on the ground, in my opinion. Who else was there? Brody Grundy was massive. He had a 170. He did everything he needed to. Isaac Heaney was solid again. Probably shouldn't be in the Brownlow votes this week, but he was very good again. Errol Gordon was very, very good on the wing. And yeah, just a solid outing by most of their team. In the end, they got the points, and that's all that matters. They go into the bye now, game and a half clear on top, and just absolutely cruising. Yeah, Bulldogs, they don't go into the bye yet. They've got Collingwood this Friday night, so a big game for them coming up. Obviously, last week was a big game. This one's also a big game. They sit 5 and 6. A win against Collingwood would get them back to 6 and 6. We'll have a look now at Friday night footy, and this was over at Optus Stadium in the West. Fremantle hosting Collingwood, and somehow Collingwood have had their second draw of the year, and we've had our third draw of the year, and third in about, 4 weeks? Round 7 was the first one. Round 7, 9 and 11, or round 7, 8 and 11, something like that. Anyway, three buys already, which is pretty crazy. We've had a few seasons with 3 draws. The last time we had more than 3 draws in a season was 1977, so it's been a while, but not saying it will happen this year, but the way the football's going, there's every chance that we will be seeing some more buys before long. This one, Freo jumped them early. Collingwood got a couple of late goals in the first quarter. Second quarter, Freo kind of dominated at least the scoring of goals. Collingwood kicked 0-5 in the second quarter. Third quarter, Collingwood came out and did the reverse, kicked 5 goals to 0. And then early in the last, Collingwood got their lead out to like 25 points or so. I think it was exactly 25. But Freo came home hard, kicked the last 4 goals, kicked a point with about a minute to go to tie it up, and then it ended up a draw. Both teams probably slightly disappointed in a draw. Collingwood obviously were 4 goals up in 10 minutes to go in the last quarter. You kind of expect that your team will be able to hold on from there. Fremantle, they dominated periods of this game early and late. They just kind of didn't do much in that middle period, or do enough in from my eye. If we have a look down at the stats, possession game, kind of both teams had similar kicks. Fremantle, as they usually do, like the Bulldogs, did have a lot more handballs, so ended up having about 30 odd disposals more than Collingwood. Collingwood won the contested game. Fremantle won the uncontested game. What that means, I don't know. Collingwood won the turnover game by 4. They only had 63, which is about their average, not too far from their average. Collingwood had the more shots and the more shots on goal. Just didn't convert. 10 goals, 12 for Collingwood, 11 goals, 8 for Fremantle, off the boot, that is. Whereas off the actual final score was 10 goals, 15 Collingwood, and 11-9 Fremantle. So Collingwood definitely wasted some opportunities. What else have we got that's interesting fact or not from the game. Centre clearances very level, which for Collingwood is probably a win there, because although Collingwood aren't bad at centre clearances and clearances in general, Fremantle are the number one ranked team going into this week, so to be +1 in centre clearances and +10 in stoppage clearances is a massive win for Collingwood in my eyes. They just, in the end, let themselves down with that last 15 minutes of play. Tackle game was very level. Freo just won that one, which is a positive for them because Collingwood are the number one tackling team going into the week. Inside 50s, very similar. Collingwood were +1. So both teams had their chances. Ends up a draw, which kind of probably hurts Collingwood more than it does Freo, just due to the fact that Collingwood already had the draw, so this puts them back level with the teams that haven't drawn, and they don't have the greatest percentage. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out going forward. Looking at some players on the field, Darcy kicked a goal in the last quarter. He was good. Jordan Clark was massive off the back line. Brayshaw was good in the midfield. Pearce played a great game. He kicked the goal to get him within a point. Hayden Young was good in the midfield. Who else was good? Sarong was solid. I think biggest issue for them probably on the night was maybe not Nat Fyfe. I love the guy, but he really struggled. He didn't get much of the ball, and he just kind of got beaten to it all night long. For Collingwood, best players, Darcy Cameron was massive in the ruck. He played really, really well. Nick Dacos, he had 35 touches as per usual. He was good. Wasn't his most effective game of all time, but he certainly got his hands on it a lot. Was very solid. Harvey Harrison was good down up forward. He kicked a few goals and was very effective up there. And Paddy Lipinski was also very good up forward as that half forward flanker role that he kind of plays a lot and played it pretty well. He had 3 goal assists and a goal. So both teams probably disappointed, but in the end, take 2 points each. We move on to Saturday football. First up, there was 2 games on at the same time. This was down at Blunston Arena in Hobart. North Melbourne hosting Port Adelaide. The 0-10 North Melbourne lose again. They're now 0-11. Port Adelaide, they go to 8-3, and their season's looking solid, looking really good. They've had a couple bad games, but at the end of the day, they're 8-3, and looking like a solid pick for the top 4 at the moment on current form. First quarter, not too much of a gap, 32-21 in Port Adelaide's favour, but after that, it kind of just got bigger and bigger, the gap. Third quarter was 41-8, which is a bit of a domination, and then in the end, Port Adelaide win this 16-11 107 to North Melbourne's 7-6 48. As we'd expect, Port Adelaide are a solid team. North Melbourne are not, so I try to be positive for them, but yeah, they don't have a lot going for them at the moment, the Kangaroos. Looking at the game, disposals were very similar, +3 to North Melbourne. Contested, North Melbourne won the contested ball, which is a little surprising, but also not really, because Port Adelaide are probably going to bring the pressure a bit more than North Melbourne. North Melbourne aren't well known for their pressure game. Looking at it, other stats on the game, turnover game was very similar. Port Adelaide 55, North Melbourne 58, so pretty close there. Marks very similar. Clearances, centre clearances were 10 each. Stoppage clearances were +2 to Port Adelaide, so once again, not much between them. Tackle count was +20 to Port Adelaide, and then inside 50 count was +21. So looking at the numbers, it's hard to see, I guess, how North Melbourne lost by so much. Just like looking at those facts and numbers, and nothing else. Obviously, inside 50 count was massive difference, but at the end of the day, it was just Port Adelaide kind of creamed them, but not so much on the stat sheet, but also in the stat sheet, if you get what I mean. Best players, I think it's hard to put anyone in the best players from North Melbourne, to be honest, but Tristan Xerri played a good game in the ruck. Luke Davies-Yanaki was good. He's had a good season. He had 35 touches. Harry Sheasel, he's moved into the midfield over the last month or so, and he's looking good in there. He did have 7 turnovers, which was a game high, but I think it's going to be very good for his development, moving him into the midfield and getting a little bit more attack out of him. Like, obviously he was playing as an attacking half-back, but most of his disposals were in that back line and just getting the ball out, whereas now it's in that link play as the final piece towards going towards goals. So he was good. For Port Adelaide, across the board, they were good. Butters was great. Travis Boak was great. Radagoya was good. Burn Jones, he's had a couple good weeks in a row. Jackson Mead was good. Todd Marshall was good. Burgoyne was good. Just their whole team. Ollie Wines, Jordan Sweet, like, their whole team just played really well. Didn't really have any weak points. So, yeah, they just were the better team, as you'd expect, going up against North Melbourne, and they got the job done. Also on at the same time in Melbourne at Marvel Stadium, we had Carlton versus the Gold Coast. Carlton, they get a win. They go to 7-4. Gold Coast cop the loss. They go 6-5. This game was pretty level for the first half in a low-scoring first half. 33 Carlton, 26 to Gold Coast. Kind of opened up a bit, especially early in that third quarter, and Carlton kind of kicked away to win 15-12, 102 to 11-7, 73. Gold Coast kind of continued their run for the season of not winning away games. This is potentially an issue for them. Granted, yes, they did go to Melbourne and play against one of the better Melbourne teams, but still they need to start winning some games on the road to have any chance of taking that next step. Disposals were absolutely dominated by Carlton in this one, by a big margin. 408 disposals is a massive amount in a game. And Gold Coast just couldn't get their hands on the ball for big, long periods of the game. Uncontested ball was 270 to 156, which is a crazy number. Carlton only had 46 turnovers, which is a very impressive effort. But in the end, they just were the better team across the board for the longer period. Where else? What else have we got? Looking at, I think Carlton just shared the ball a lot, and it actually worked well for them. There has been a couple of weeks where they maybe have over-possessed it, and their coaches called them out for that. The Collingwood one, especially in that last quarter, was a sign of that. I think last week they probably over-possessed it a little bit. But when they use it, the over-possessing as a benefit, this looked a lot better, because Gold Coast bought a lot of pressure, but they just couldn't turn it over. 335 pressure acts for the Gold Coast is a massive amount in a game of football. For example, Collingwood, who's it's about the same number as Collingwood had, to be fair. Collingwood and Fremantle, so huge compared to Carlton, but that's because Carlton had the ball. When you have the ball, you can't be pressuring the other team. Clearances, won both centre clearances and stoppage clearances by Carlton, which is a positive for them, because the last couple of weeks had probably dropped off a little bit in that regard. Tackles, Gold Coast had more, but that happens when the other team has the ball. Inside 50s though, 51 apiece. So plenty of signs that Gold Coast were in this game, but in the end, Carlton just controlled the ball for too many periods of the game, and just in the end, won't say comfortable win, but semi-comfortable win. Carlton were really good across the board. Obviously, they did have a lot of possession, so a lot of their players all will be stacking up on the stat sheet. Paddy Cripps was outstanding. He rated a 156. He was probably best on ground. Cohen was good. Kennedy was good. Tom De Koning was really good. I think he plays better as that solo ruck, which he got to be this week. It just allows him some freedom. Charlie Curnow got off the leash in that second half. He was good. Wiedering, Newman, Sam Walsh. Across the board, most of Carlton's team was very good. If we go down to the Gold Coast Suns, Jared Witt's outstanding in the ruck. Obviously, both him and De Koning had big games numbers-wise. But both players did their role. Miller was good. Matt Rao was outstanding. He was Gold Coast's best player, probably. Him or Witts. Not so much in the getting the ball for Matt Rao this week. It was very heavily defensive focus. He had 15 tackles and was trying his heart out to get the ball back for Gold Coast, because obviously, as I said, they didn't do that too successfully, but Matt Rao was out there trying his darndest. Game number 5 of the weekend was what possibly, looking at the round, was, and maybe even after the games, one of the matches of the round, if not the match of the round. Geelong hosting GWS at GHMBA. No, GMHBA. I totally know my letters the right way around. Geelong jumped them pretty well early, but then that second quarter, GWS got back into it. Even took a comfortable lead into half-time. Geelong fought their way back in the second half. In the end, it ends up being 11 goals, 12-78 for GWS to Geelong's 11-8-74. So that's 4 losses in a row for the Cats. I wouldn't say panic stations just yet for them, but I would say a little bit of a cause for concern to lose 4 games in a row. GWS, they get their season back on track. They've had a tough month or so. A big win down at the Cattery is huge for them. I believe that's now 4 games in a row down at the Cattery that they have beat Geelong, which is an outstanding effort. It's also 2 games in a row that Geelong have lost at the Cattery, which is surprising coming into the year. I wouldn't have expected that. Looking at the numbers on the game, uncontested ball was won by Geelong. Turnovers, high turnover game, 78 for Giants, 70 for Geelong, so Geelong won that side of the game. What else is huge or noticeable on the game? 16 centre clearances to 7 for the Giants, so they really got their hands on the ball first out of the centre, which probably was a major factor in them winning this one. Tackle game was really good by GWS. Inside 50s though, Geelong dominated. They just couldn't put the scores on the board. They had plus 15 inside 50s. They're not the first team this year, to win the inside 50 count and lose the game. A lot of teams do it. Inside 50s is not the be all and end all, but creating opportunities is very important, and they did create plenty. They just didn't convert them into goals. And it's not like they kicked poorly at goal. It was just maybe hitting the correct target going into the 50 might have been a bit of an issue for them. Looking at the best players on the ground, Max Holmes was great for Geelong. Tom Atkins was huge. He had 20 touches. 7 intercepts, 4 score involvements, 38 pressure acts, which was a game high, so he was very good. Outside of them, they had some good players in. Jack Henry was good down back. Tom Stewart was solid. Brad Close, Blixarves. Toby Conway was good, solid in the ruck. He wasn't outstanding. And then for GWS, I've lost my mouse, so hold on. There we go. Toby Green kicked the match-winning goal, so he had a good. He wasn't outstanding throughout the game, but he had 24 touches, kicked the game winner. So that was huge. Angwin was massive for GWS. Really good performance from him. Keep an eye on him as an outside midfielder. Lee Kalia was massive. He took 2 contested marks in the last minute and a half in the defensive 50, which sealed the game for them. He was outstanding all day, but 2 contested marks late was very big. Connor Iden was really good. And Kieran Briggs showed again that he's a very good up-and-coming ruckman. He was the best ruckman on the day. Obviously, he was only going up against Toby Conway. No offence to Toby Conway, but he's not one of the well-known good ruckmen. So, good performance from him. And GWS get the points, and they'll be stoked with that. We go on to Saturday night football, and this was dream time at the G. Richmond, obviously, after coming off a 91 and then 119 point losses, didn't probably have high hopes going into this. The Bombers are flying. They haven't lost since round 3 or 4, since Gather round, so round 4. So they're flying. Life's good for them in Bomberland. Richmond put up a fight here, though. They were very, very good. It was good to see a bit of fight from them. They're still battling injuries. They've got a few players back, but they're still fighting the battle of injuries. And they did about as good as one could hope, I guess, from this game by pushing them right to the end. Scores were level at quarter time. Bombers kicked an extra goal in the second quarter to lead by 6. They won the third quarter by 2 and the last quarter by 4 to end up winning only by 12 points. And with 5, 6, 7 minutes to go, Richmond was still in it. So a good performance from the Tigers. Essendon did what they need to. One of these days I'd like to see them demolish a team. I mean, they did win by 40 or 50 points against North Melbourne last week, but in the end they won, and that's all that you kind of expect from them in this one. Bombers dominated possession, especially uncontested ball, but contested ball was pretty similar. Very high turnover game again. This one, Richmond just turned it over too much, which you can't blame them too much. They are a very young team. But yeah, they had 83 turnovers, which is one of the higher numbers for the round. Essendon turned it over 73 times, which is still quite a big number, but it was obviously less than Richmond did. Uncontested ball obviously was won by Essendon, as I said, so therefore they kind of controlled the marks, controlled the tempo of the game. Surprisingly, and also maybe not surprisingly, Essendon had a lot more of the ball, plus, what was it, 46 disposals for the game, but yet still had plus 21 pressure acts, which is not a great sign for Richmond, and probably suggests that maybe Essendon should have won by more. Richmond got it out of the centre really well. They actually got it out of all clearances really well. Ended up plus 10 in the clearance game. But in the end, the better team is Essendon, and they kind of showed that. Plus 13 inside 50s. And in the end, only a 2-goal win, but they were probably the better team across the length of the night. Richmond just fought really well and took their opportunities, which kept them in the game, and You can't expect much more. For Richmond, Dusty Martin had a return to form. He played really well. He was very important, especially early. Liam Baker was good in the midfield. Nankervis battled it out in the ruck. He was good. Shai Bolton got injured late, around the three-quarter times mark, but he was playing an outstanding game up until that point. Camden McIntosh was one of his better games of the year. For the Bombers, they were good across the board, as a lot of winning teams were this week. I don't think any doubt on who was the best player. He got the award for the best player on the ground, and that was Jordan Ridley. Sorry, I was trying to think of my next sentence. Jordan Ridley was outstanding at 31 touches. A lot of intercepts for the game. He had, what did he have? 14 intercepts, so that's outstanding. Laverde had 13 intercepts, which is also a very high number. He was good. Zach Merritt, he kicked a goal late. He was outstanding, as you'd always expect. He had 31 touches. Nick Hind was good as an outside mid sort of player. Heppel was good in the back line. Durham was good. Stringer was good. Mason Redmond was really good. Nick Martin was solid. So overall, they were really, really consistent across the board, the Bombers. A little bit surprising looking at some of these numbers, both individual players and the numbers of the team, that they didn't win by more. Looking at that, you'd expect at least 6 or 7 goal win, but outstanding from Richmond. They did everything they could to try and get into this game. They were probably never really going to compete, but they did everything they could and just fell short. Sunday football started at Marvel Stadium. Hawthorn hosting a Brisbane, and going into this one, Hawthorn were in good form. Brisbane had kind of turned their season around a little bit, were looking a lot better. And surprisingly, for me at least, Hawthorn kind of controlled most of this game and ended up winning reasonably comfortably. Final score was Hawthorn 15-10 100, Brisbane 10 goals 15-75. So both teams did have 25 scoring shots, and yet it was a 25-point margin, which suggests Brisbane kind of wasted a lot of opportunities, which has kind of been the story of their year. Not always poor kicking in front of goal, but poor efficiency in the forward line, and I think this was no different. Would Hawthorn still have won? Were they the better team? Probably, but it possibly, in my eyes at least, should have been a lot closer than it was. Contested ball was dead level, 117 apiece. Uncontested, Hawthorn just up on that. Turnover game was low, 54-53, which suggests it was a low pressure game, and the numbers kind of suggest that as well. Brisbane winning the pressure game, but it's one of the lower pressure rating games of the week. Looking at what else there was, Brisbane won contested marks, that is, sorry, but they also did win centre clearances. I can totally talk. Total clearances was, where are we? +1 to Hawthorn though, so overall that kind of evens out. Inside 50s +2 to Hawthorn, so +2 inside 50s, level on scoring shots, suggests that maybe it was a tight game, tighter than the scoreboard suggests at the end of the day. But yeah, it was just a couple little spurts where Hawthorn kind of put the daggers in. Obviously they won the first quarter quite convincingly, Hawthorn, but there was a couple periods throughout the game where they just banged on 3 or 4 goals in the space of 5 minutes and kind of put Brisbane to the sword a couple times. Best players, Hawthorn just outstanding across most of the board. Will Day was really good. I thought he was best on ground. Newcomb was good. Impey was good. Sicily returned really well. Amon was good. Yeah, across the board though, pretty solid. For Brisbane, their best players, Jared Berry, probably their best player. Um, Charlie Cameron, possibly his best game of the year. Oscar McInerney was really good in the ruck. Darcy Wilmot was good. Dunkley was solid. Lohman was good up forward. Wasted a couple opportunities, kicking 2 goals 3, but overall pretty good. So, yeah, I don't know what to make of Brisbane right now. They go into the bye this week, and they'll be hoping that they can really turn their season around. In the second half, they've only won 4 games in the first 11. Obviously, they still have 12 games left this year. It's not out of the realms of possibility that they go 8-4 or 9-3 in that, and maybe sneak a finals appearance. But at the moment, it's certainly looking difficult. Hawthorn, I don't think anyone still expects that they're going to be pushing for finals, but they're up to 4-7. And showing quite a lot of good development. They showed a couple of good games late last year. They started this season pretty roughly, but they've certainly turned it around, and certainly quite a bit of hope in Hawthorn land right about now. Next up on the second game of Sunday was over at the MCG across town. Melbourne hosting St Kilda. Melbourne, their season's up and down. Obviously coming off the loss to the Eagles. St Kilda, their season started pretty solid, really good. It's falling apart very quickly. They're now 3-8, and it's hard to see them competing for the rest of the year based on what we've seen. This game was dominated by Melbourne. All the way up, they end up winning this one 14-16, 100 to 9 goals, 862. So it's only 38 points, but St Kilda did kick the last 3 goals of the match. So up until that point, it was over 50 point margin. Melbourne were just much better team on the day, and there's very little that anyone could argue to say different. Melbourne plus 30 disposals, mainly uncontested disposals, but they did win the contested as well. Turnover game was massive. St Kilda had 80 turnovers, which is a huge number. And yeah, obviously Melbourne only had 66, so a bit of a difference there. Marks was dominated by Melbourne, so they kind of just controlled the play quite a lot of this game. Centre clearances, Melbourne won that by 5. And then tackles were pretty low for both teams, 44 to Melbourne, 41 to St Kilda. Inside 50s plus 26 for Melbourne, so another domination in the inside 50 count by Melbourne. Led to quite a comfortable win in the end. Pretty stress-free day for the Demons. Best players, I don't think there's any doubts about who was best on ground. Max Gawn was outstanding. Showed his number 1 ruck. He's been really good this year. He's had a couple down games, like opening round, he wasn't outstanding. He got beaten by Grundy that day, but he's definitely the best ruckman in the league at the moment. Let's just have a look at his stat line, because it was quite massive. 27 disposals, 24 of those effective, 5 intercepts, 1 goal, 10 score involvements, 7 marks, 10 clearances, 34 hit-outs, 8 of those to advantage, 3 tackles, 5 inside 50s, 1 rebound 50. So just an outstanding game from him. Jack Viney was massive as well. Clayton Oliver was really, really good. Tomlinson was good. Tom McDonald was good. Neil Bullen was good. Pickett, Chandler, Stephen May, outstanding. He kicked his first goal in 5 years. Petrarca was down a bit on his usual, but in the end, didn't really matter. For St Kilda, hard to see anyone that was outstanding. Really, across the board, they just were beaten comfortably. Jack Higgins was probably the most over their normal average. In the game, he kicked 2 goals and had 2 goal assists. He was good, but overall, most of the team kind of was below par for them. One final game of the weekend. It was over at Adelaide Oval. Adelaide hosting West Coast, and this game was kind of over before the 5-minute mark of the match. Maybe not exactly that early, but pretty early. West Coast just narrowly avoided being the second team in the 100-point club for the season. Only just. They lost by 99 points. Final score was 21-11, 137 Adelaide to 5-8, 38 for the West Coast. First quarter, 7 goals to 0, and from there, while they didn't fully blow them away as much in the rest of the game, they did win each quarter, Adelaide, and they comfortable winners in the end. Kind of in cruise control. 409 disposals for Adelaide is a very high number, especially for them. 263 for West Coast. Sorry, so that's plus 140 disposals. Of that, most of it was uncontested. Turnover game, 57 to 64 isn't massive difference between the two teams, but still quite convincing in Adelaide's favour. Marks 134 to 78, dominated by Adelaide. Adelaide's pressure axe was down low, but once again they had so much of the ball that that doesn't really matter. Clearances 14 to 11 in the centre clearances for Adelaide. Stoppage clearances, West Coast just won that, which neither team are typically the best clearance teams, so that was an interesting part, and kind of neither team dominated. Inside 50s plus 20 for Adelaide, and in the end they cruised most of the way. They did the hurt in the first quarter, and both teams kind of just cruised their way to the finish line at a comfortable Adelaide Crows win, who keeping their season going. I've kind of been on the Adelaide bandwagon all season. Pre-season I was. They started poorly, losing the first few. They fought their way back into the season though. They're now 4-6-1. They've still got a lot of work to do to make finals. Obviously, 12 games to go. Like Brisbane, they would need to win 8 at least, probably 9 or 10 of those, which is going to be tough. But they do have good players, and I'm not ruling it out just yet. Best players, Jordan Dawson was probably best on ground. He was outstanding from the start. He had 2 goals and 10 touches, I think, in the first quarter, and didn't really slow down too much. He had 32 touches for the match. Across the board, Adelaide were pretty good. Rory Laird was good. Riley O'Brien is back in form. He's playing well. Chase Jones probably played his best game of the year. Matt Crouch was solid. And Lachlan Scholl was good in the backline. For West Coast, it was a tough day. A couple more highlight plays for Harley Reid. He was good. Elliot Yeo was solid. He only had 15 touches, but defensively was one of their better midfielders. Tim Kelly was solid. Tom Cole was good. And Tom Barras in the backline was pretty good. But overall, they just got kind of beaten comfortably in most facets of the game. So that is the round wrapped up, all 9 matches. Yeah, that's how I saw the weekend. As I mentioned at the start of the podcast, don't forget we've got a big week coming up. If you're listening to this on Spotify, don't forget to check out my YouTube, because that's where the mid-season reviews will be going up. I won't be releasing them on Spotify. So Tuesday, which is tomorrow, or today if you're listening to this on Tuesday, obviously, we've got the Brisbane mid-season review. That will be going live around lunchtime Australian Eastern Time. Then Wednesday we've got the North Melbourne mid-season review. Thursday morning, as always, we have the round 12 preview. We preview each week. So that will go live on Spotify and YouTube on Thursday, and then on Friday we'll be jumping back over to the YouTube videos for a couple more with Sydney and GWS mid-season reviews. So don't forget to go check them out. We'll break down how each team's going, and then obviously as each team has a bye, we'll be checking them out. Don't forget to check out my other socials. Post teams of the weeks, power rankings, and stuff on my Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Twitter, I post player rankings after each game as quickly as I can. It's usually a couple hours after each game. And also TikTok, check that out because I post little 1-minute game reviews after each match, and then some other little pieces throughout the week. So go check them all out. I appreciate you for anyone that's supporting. Hope you enjoyed. A lot of content as always, but we keep fighting through. We're going to keep bringing all the information I can, and hope to see you in the mid-season review videos, which first one will be going live tomorrow. Peace.